One of the most striking features about the owl are his amazing, large, luminous eyes. And like all birds of prey, the owl has some of the best vision in the animal kingdom. But when you're drawing an owl's eyes, or for that matter, the eyes of any animal, bird, mammal, any animal that has a round orb-shaped eyeball that is moist, there's something to remember, something that's often overlooked by many artists, and something that even drawing people, this is very helpful because it adds a certain measure of realism that you just aren't going to get if you leave it out. There is an optical phenomenon called caustics that happens when light hits a translucent object, and the eye, it's not opaque. The eye is almost like a glass marble. It has a lot of layers, and it's quite transparent. Light enters the eye at one point, it breaks apart, splinters within the layers of the eye, and then it leaves at another point. For our purposes, we're going to say that our light source is going to be at the upper right. And there we are. So if the light is coming down this way, then you're going to have a highlight somewhere on that side of the eye. The highlight is a relatively small, relatively sharply focused, and very bright white or light area on the surface of the eye, and that is the point where the light is entering the eye. It's very concentrated. That's where the light is entering the eye. We'll go ahead and darken the pupil so that our highlight will show up well. Now, after the light comes from the light source and enters the eye at the point of the highlight, then it begins to dissipate, it begins to break apart, and it exits the eye on the other side of the eye. So if the light source is coming from the upper right, then the caustic, which is sort of usually visible in the form of an arc of light, sometimes just a very pale area, but an arc of light on the opposite side from the light source would be here on this particular owl. Now the owl, of course, has quite a brow of feathers above his eye, and generally those feathers will cast a shadow. So we're going to include that as well. A soft shadow that fades back away as it comes out, emerges out from beneath that brow. This is what gives him his wise and sometimes fierce expression. Okay, so now the caustic is going to be on the opposite side of the eye from the light source. So it will be on this side of the eye. And all that really means is that as you shade the eye, you want to include that pale area. And you can create it with your eraser. In fact, we'll go ahead with this fellow. Okay, we'll come back with our eraser. Lift out an arc to create the caustic, the area of reflection, where the light is emerging from within the translucent eyeball. Light gathering abilities of an owl's eyes are legendary. They're more than 100 times that of humans. Go ahead and add a little texture around the eyes just so they don't seem to be floating in space. My strokes are small because The feathers here are very fine and downy. So you're going to have the dark pupil, the highlight where the light is entering the eye, the pigmentation of the eyeball itself. There are a few owls that have solid black eyes. I'm not certain, but I think in North America the only one with a solid black eye is the barred owl, which is one of the owls we will be drawing during this course. And part of his ghostly appearance is his dark black, kind of bottomless eyes that seem to look right through you. Okay, so we have light source, highlight. I'm going to go ahead and clean up my highlight a little. There we go. And the highlight won't always be a perfect circle, particularly out in a natural setting. Sometimes it will be broken up. You may have the reflection of trees or sunlight through the tops of trees, so that your highlight is kind of an odd little complicated shape. But you have light source, enters at the highlight, passes through the eyeball, exits at the opposite side, creating the phenomenon called caustics. This is also true of the human eye, and if you begin to look at a very detailed drawings and paintings, you will, and photographs actually. In fact, if you're sitting near someone, you can turn around and look at their eye right now and you'll see this going on. If you remember to include it in your sketching, it goes a long way toward giving that kind of lively, realistic look. All right.